Okay, students, we're going to talk about distance formula and Pythagorean theorem. They are the same thing, okay? Pythagorean theorem is usually done visually on the graph. And you count the side lengths, okay? Versus distance formula is just done from the formula. So it's not visual. You just plug the numbers into a formula and you're hoping you do all your calculations correctly. So, example, okay, and these are both, since they're the same thing, they must be done only with right triangles. Only with right triangles. Okay. You have to be given two sides. Two of the three sides. Okay. And then you use Pythagorean theorem or distance formula to find the third side. Okay. Or that would be the same as saying given 2 points, okay, in the coordinate plane. So example, if I have the point A and they tell me that is 1, 3, and B, they tell me this is -4, -1. Okay? So it doesn't change. It's the same points over on the other side here. Okay, so the one, we use the distance formula. We'll do that one first. Okay. This is the distance formula. One way of writing it. So the way you say that is the square root of the quantity x sub 2 minus x sub 1 all squared plus the quantity y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all squared. Okay? X, the 2 and the 1 just represent 0.2 and 0.1. So it doesn't matter which one, just so you know, that I call A for 0.1 and 0.2. So we'll go ahead and call 0.1 -4 -1, and we'll call 0.2 1, 3. Like I said, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer. Okay, so we just plug this in. Now, just so you know, another way of writing this, the shorter way of saying it is the change in square root of the change in x squared plus the change in y squared. Okay, that's the same thing, just much simpler to say. Okay, you should know from algebra 1, changing x means to subtract your x's, and changing y means to subtract your y's, just like you get change from the grocery store. They subtract the amount you give them compared to the amount you owe. Okay, so that Greek letter is called delta on the side, but that doesn't matter. You just know to pronounce it change in x squared plus change in y squared. Okay, so now I go ahead and fill it in. X sub 2. Just so you know, this would be x, since that's 0.2, this would be x sub 2 comma y sub 2. This would be x sub 1 comma y sub 1. Okay, because 0.1, that's all the sub 2s and sub 1s mean is 0.1 and 0.2. So x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. So it gives me 5 squared plus 4 squared, which then gives me the square root of 25 plus 16 is 41. And so that's what the distance from 1, 3 to -4, -1 is. That's just all from plugging in the formula. Okay, so this means you better know how to subtract integers correctly. If you don't, you're going to blow it here, and you have no way to check to see if it makes sense. So that's why I say if you're good with math and integers, distance formula is going to be quicker. If you want a visual to check in, you're slower, you're weaker with your integers, then you should use Pythagorean theorem. So I have 1, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, -1. I go ahead and draw a right triangle. There's always the right triangles here. I'm trying to find my C. Remember, this is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, don't forget, points are capital letters, sides are lowercase. And remember, the only other time we use lowercase pretty much is when it's next to an arrow on a line and naming a line. So if I had lowercase n right there, that'd be line n. It'd be at one arrow or the other. It could have been over here, and they could have a lowercase p, and then it would be line p. So it's either there or on sidelines that we see lowercase letters. Okay, otherwise it should be capital letters for all points or slash angles. Okay, so I just got to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. Oh, look it. There's that 5. I count here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 on this side. Oh, there's the 4 right there. The exact same thing. And so I have 4 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. Pythagorean theorem. I didn't write it down. Let's go ahead and write it down here. Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember, c is always your hypotenuse. And where's the hypotenuse located? Always across from the right angle. So C is always going to be the hypotenuse, which is always going to be the longest side of your right triangle. And these A and B are called legs. Doesn't matter which side I call A and which side I call B. Okay, because notice I'm adding them and I'm squaring. And what happens when you square a number? You're always going to get a positive. And when I add, it doesn't matter if I say 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2, I still get the same answer. So that's why it doesn't matter which side I call A and which side I call B. Okay, so notice now I have, if I want to solve for C, I need to take the square root of both sides. So now I have C equals the square root of 41, the exact same answer. Okay, so one is done with the formula, distance formula, and the other is done with visually and drawing a right triangle out and counting. Most people can count better than they can do their subtraction of integers because you haven't mastered your integers, unfortunately, from middle school. Those who have, plugging in the distance formula is quicker because you don't have to draw a graph, you don't have to plot the points, you don't have to then count, you just plug numbers right into the formula. Okay, but these are the same thing. Okay, so you have the square root, just like I have the square root here. The length, so this is the length of the x side or the horizontal. Notice here's the horizontal right there. The distance is 5. That's my change in x. That's the horizontal distance. There's my 5. This is my change in my y. That's the y distance. That's the change in y, 4. The exact same thing. Okay, so now you see that the Pythagorean theorem equals distance formula. Make sure you know that because I'll ask for extra credit throughout the quarter. What's the difference between, what's another name for Pythagorean theorem? You're telling me distance formula. What's another name for distance formula? You're telling me Pythagorean theorem. If I ask you what the distance formula is, you tell me the square root of the change in x squared plus the change in y squared. If I ask what's the Pythagorean theorem, you say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C is the hypotenuse, a and b are the legs. That's what I want to hear. You should have that memorized. It's also on your DCAS sheet. Okay, that ends it.